Mountain for about 11,500 years, maybe longer. And we know this because of excavations that have been done in 43 rock shelters around within a mile of the mountain house. So we know
43, did you say?
43 rock shelters so far. That's a very loud bus. Wow. So our predecessors on this land, I'll say ancestors, our predecessors, to them this was home. And this wasn't a place where they visited on holiday, this was home. And so if this was home, then this is the salad bar. Yeah?
Salad.
Yeah, this is the we're walking through the salad bar. We're walking through the buffet. We're walking through the pharmacy. Yeah? Right? This is where medicinal herbs and plants were harvested. This was the hardware store, like Home Depot or Lowe's. This was where our ancestors acquired tools and fashioned the things that they needed to survive and even to thrive. This is where the children were born. This is the nursery, right here. Yeah? This is where the ancestors are buried. So there was no separation between the land and the people. And by the time I read an account of a Western journalist who was walking through South Africa, and he happened to be with a child, a young girl about 7 years old, and he asked her, "Sweetheart, what kind of plant is this?" And she looked at him very suspiciously. "What do you mean, what kind of plant is that?" Everybody knows that's a blah 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 plant, and it can be eaten at this time of year, and it can be prepared and made into medicines and medicinal tea and so forth. Everybody knows that. She was very suspicious by his question. Suspicious of his question. It would be the equivalent of me going up to you and saying, "Excuse me, ma'am, what is this thing?" You'd be like, "It's a camera? What planet have you been living on?" To our ancestors, to not know every tree and every plant and every fresh water source and every animal trail was just unthinkable. So by the time, now how old are you? Did you, oh, you said 7, right? So 7 years old. By the time native children are 7 years old, I said are, not were. By the time native, because there are some, thank God, as I said, remaining on planet Earth. By the time children were 7 years old, they knew what that blue jay was saying and why it was calling. It's responding to something. Why? By the time they were 7, they knew all these things. They could find a place for suitable shelter. They knew how to keep themselves safe. They knew how to identify hazards. They could navigate without map or compass. Right? How do they do that? Okay, let's walk a little bit. I'm going to tell a little story on how that was done. Walk. An auntie, an uncle, or a mentor would take them out on a little journey. "Honey, let's go for a walk. Come on, we're going to go take a walk out of camp." And they wouldn't take a trail. They would walk through the forest or the field or the grasslands or the seashore or the desert, whatever habitat or ecosystem they lived in. And they would take the child by the hand through a trackless area that the child had never been on. It might even be that the adult had never been on. And they would ask the child to start to point out things on the landscape. Let's say this rock here, this stone. And the mentor, the auntie, or uncle, grandmother, grandfather would say, "Honey, what does this rock? What does this rock look like to you? Describe this rock to me. If you were going to tell a story, give this rock a personality. What would you give it? Anybody? What about directional? Which what?
A directional signal.
Okay, it's a directional signal. So we were walking through the forest one day, honey, me and you, and we came across the directional signal rock. And this rock now has a personality. It has a meaning. It's a landmark. A big fat woodchuck just ran across the trail right behind us. It's already gone into the bush. All right, and then we keep walking and we keep walking, and we asked the child to identify landmarks along this trackless area that we're moving through, and begin to weave a story based on the entities of the landscape. And so we went from directional signal rock, and we came over to this clump of these trees, and let's call this clump of trees, let's say the Adams family or something. It's a little family, a little clump of trees. And then, as we were walking along the trail, we came across the Adams family clump. And the Adams family clump were kind of walking along, and because of directional signal rock, they were able to follow it, and on and on and on, if you get my point. Now, the story will get woven to be ever more complex and longer, yeah? And it's Bob the Spring and Margaret the grandmother oak tree, and on, until the child and the mentor get far enough away from camp. Now, this takes years to get far away enough from camp that they have to spend the night now. They have to spend the night. They can't get back to their main camp before dark. They have to spend the night. They have to spend the night. By the way, this is horse poop. It won't hurt you. It won't destroy your shoes. Trust me.
And it really tastes good.
Yeah, good eating too. I see some people just completely fixated on horse poop. It's just horse poop. And so now the grandmother, auntie, uncle, or mentor and the child have to spend the night. They have to make a shelter, and they have to make fire, and they have to maybe gather some food and fresh water. The next day, camp is broken, and the grandmother, the mentor, says to the child, "Okay, baby, lead us back home." And the child turns around and goes, "Oh, hey, here's Frank the Spring, and we were walking along." And they tell the story backwards. They weave the story backwards. Now, in Aboriginal Australian culture, this is referred to as a songline. A songline. This is teaching children so many principles at so many different levels. I can't even emphasize the importance of this, because I see this with the kids that I work with. Now, I started working with kids at 6, 7 years old. Some of them now are going to college, so I've been with them a while. And I see a remarkable ability and awareness in these young people. And to them, let's look at this chestnut oak here. Look at this chestnut oak. Now, this is a chestnut oak. To somebody who's sort of moderately paying attention to the natural world, this is a chestnut oak. To a child or even adult that's been practicing songlines, this chestnut oak is an individual. It looks nothing like any other. It's as unique as a fingerprint. It doesn't look anything like any other chestnut oak in the forest. They learn at a young age, very, very complex pattern recognition. This is such a vital piece of this whole native journey.